So without further ado, I ask Imam Zia to please come to the podium, inshallah, and we'll get started with the lecture. Jazakallah khair, assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, we have a good crowd here today. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept your coming and your interest in the seeking of knowledge, which is going to be my talk today about the importance of knowledge itself and the issue of making ilm, knowledge, a priority. First and foremost, we have to understand and define what knowledge actually is. What is ilm? And how does it differ from information? Okay, there is ilm and there is just information. Okay, when a person has knowledge, that knowledge actually makes him recognize Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It makes him closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Information, it doesn't make a person closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What it can do actually, it can make a person further away from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So knowledge is the thing that we should be striving for. Ilm is the thing that we need to be striving for. And when we have true ilm, then we will be amongst those people whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala describes, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. Indeed, the ulama are the ones who have the khashya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now let me give you a couple of examples of people who are not Muslim, yet they have written volumes of books related to Islam. There is actually a dictionary of hadith which covers many volumes. Okay, so if you want to find out, for example, a hadith, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ, and you want to find out which books this hadith is found in. Okay, you would look up in alphabetical order, إِنَّمَا الْأَعْمَالُ بِالنِّيَّاتِ. You look up the first few words, and on the side it will tell you that it's in Bukhari in such and such a place, in Muslim in such and such a place, Abu Dawood in such and such a place. It'll basically give you all the references of the hadith books where you can find that particular hadith. Now this book, it covers many volumes, but it was actually written by a Hindu, written by a non-Muslim. His research into the book, all of his reading of the hadith, did it benefit him in the least? No, it did not benefit him. And this is an example of where ilm is information, it's not true knowledge that actually pushes a person to become a Muslim or even a better Muslim than he or she already is. There's another example that just I came across a couple of weeks ago. I was in an interfaith kind of camp for 3 or 4 days a couple of weeks ago in just outside San Antonio. At this camp, there were many pastors, rabbis, and so on. And one of the most fascinating guys I met was a guy called Todd Whitman. And when I got to talking with him, I thought just a ordinary pastor or minister, but he's actually a person who lectures in a university about Islam. And he's written a book about the 7 or 8 different places that the shaitan is mentioned. You know, that whole discussion that takes place between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the shaitan, where Allah tells the angels and the shaitan to prostrate before shaitan, and then the shaitan refuses. So this is mentioned about 7 times in the Quran. And each one, it has slightly different wordings, different wording for soil, and different wordings of exchange that took place between Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the shaitan. And he basically has written a book that talks about this whole discussion of the shaitan and the lessons that you can learn from this story. But again, his study of the Quran, his study of the tafasir, and he apparently speaks fluent Arabic, his study of the tafasir didn't push him to become a Muslim. So again, this is a classical example of a person having information but not ilm. Because Allah says, إِنَّمَا يَخْشَى اللَّهَ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ الْعُلَمَاء. The ulama, the people who have the knowledge, they develop the khashya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they develop an awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in another place in the Quran, يَرْفَعِ اللَّهُ الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا مِنْكُمْ وَالَّذِينَ أُوتُوا الْعِلْمَ دَرَجَاتٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises the status of the people of Iman amongst you, and for the people who've been given knowledge, into many stages. A person's status is raised when he develops the true knowledge. And I'll tell you and I'll describe to you what true knowledge actually entails. It's the learning of knowledge. I'll tell you right now, the learning of knowledge, the practicing of knowledge, and the propagation of knowledge. It has three responsibilities: learning, practicing, and promoting and propagating. This is the right of the knowledge. And when a person does that, then he is fulfilling the right of the knowledge, and in turn Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raises the status of this person in this world and also in the hereafter. There's a very famous hadith that is mentioned in many books. It's mentioned in Bukhari and Muslim and Nawawi and many others, in which the Prophet ﷺ said, مَنْ يُرِدِ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala intends khair for, He gives him the understanding of deen. And the word fiqh is being used here. Fiqh, understanding and attainment of knowledge. There are different definitions of the word fiqh, but here it means a person's understanding of the religion. So when a person gets the true knowledge and he gets the correct understanding of the knowledge, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has destined this person for khair. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given this person a lot of khair and a lot of goodness. And according to this hadith is in Bukhari, but the Sharih of Al-Bukhari, Hafiz ibn al-Hajar rahimahullah, in Fath al-Bari, in the footnotes to this hadith, he mentions an addition to this hadith, which is slightly weak according to Imam Bukhari's standards. Imam Bukhari's standards were very, very high, very, very strict. So he didn't take every single hadith that he came across. He had a very strict criteria for the acceptance of hadith. But there's one hadith, the same hadith, مَنْ يُرِدَ اللَّهُ بِهِ خَيْرًا يُفَقِّهُ فِي الدِّينِ. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants khair for, He gives him the understanding of religion. There's an addition to this hadith which is slightly a little bit weak. And that is, وَمَنْ لَمْ يَتَفَقَّهْ فِي الدِّينِ لَمْ يُبَالِ اللَّهُ بِهِ. Whoever does not get this understanding of deen, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has no care for him. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't care for this person. So even though the wording of this hadith is weak, the meaning is basically sahih. And that is basically, if you take the first portion of the hadith, which is absolutely sahih and covered by many of the strong books of a hadith, that automatically, this is known in the in Arabic as mafhum mukhalif, the automatic opposite is that if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't want khair for a person, He doesn't give him the religion, He doesn't give him the understanding of the religion, He doesn't give him the knowledge, and therefore Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala doesn't care for him. So any person who has been given the tawfiq and the ability to seek knowledge, this is a great opportunity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he should grab it with both hands, and he should not let that thing go. He should take full advantage of that opportunity and learn as much knowledge as he can. There's another hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ mentioned two men. ذكر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم رجلين أحدهما عابد والآخر عالم. He mentions the comparison between an alim and an abid. Alim meaning a religious scholar, and an abid basically a person who's a lay person but he worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is very diligent in his worship. So the Prophet ﷺ said, فَضْلُ الْعَالِمِ عَلَى الْعَابِدِ كَفَضْلِي عَلَى أَدْنَاكُمْ. So the status of an alim over an abid, the status of a scholar over a regular lay person who worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is like my status, meaning the Prophet ﷺ status, upon the lowest from amongst you. So if you can imagine, the status of a Sahabi is huge, right? But if you combine all of the most pious of the Sahaba, however many thousand they were, and if you combine all the pious people of the world, they cannot get close to a Prophet, okay? And obviously they cannot get to the level of the Prophet ﷺ. So if you can imagine, the Prophet ﷺ is saying that my status compared to you Sahaba is just like the status of an alim over a regular abid. Meaning that a regular abid, a person who worships Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, can never get close to the status of an alim. It's not possible. So this is a very beautiful example that the Prophet ﷺ gave. There's another hadith that the actual hadith goes on, the same hadith goes on to say, إِنَّ اللَّهَ وَمَلَائِكَتَهُ وَأَهْلَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِينَ حَتَّى النَّمْلَ فِي جُحْرِهَا وَحَتَّى الْحُوتِ لَيُصَلُّونَ عَلَى مُعَلِّمِ النَّاسِ الْخَيْرِ. The Prophet ﷺ said, the angels and all the creatures of the earth, the ants in their holes, the fish in the sea, the birds in the sky, they actually pray for a person who is seeking and then teaching the knowledge. And why is this? What have these creatures got to do with the person who is seeking knowledge? What are they getting out of this person who is seeking knowledge and he's striving to increase in his knowledge and his awareness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? What are they getting out of it? And why do they pray for that person? So the scholars say that actually these creatures, they have a long-term vision. Unlike us, we're very focused on the immediate future, right? So these creatures, they have a long-term vision. And they see in this long-term vision that this person who is seeking knowledge, he is actually going to learn the knowledge, and he's then going to teach other people what is right, what is wrong, what is haram, what is halal, what is obligatory, what is non-obligatory, what is sunnah, what is bid'ah. And when people become knowledgeable, when people get the true knowledge, then what's going to happen to them? They're going to tread the right path. They're going to stay on the correct path. They will be obedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They will stay away from the disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When they are on the path of obedience and they are away from the path of disobedience, then what's going to happen? The punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that would come to a nation that is disobedient to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it will be alleviated, it will be removed. So when the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is removed from the creation, from that nation, automatically it is also removed from the fish, from the ants, from the birds, and they are also in safety. So due to this long-term vision of these creatures, they pray for this person who is seeking the path of knowledge. And another hadith, you have this concept of rolling out the red carpet for dignitaries, right? The angels actually lay down their wings. لَتَضَوْا أَجْنِحَتَهَا رِضًا لِطَالِبِ الْعِلْمِ, according to a hadith. The angels, the purest of creation, لَا يَعْصُونَ اللَّهَ مَا أَمْرَهُمْ وَيَفْعَلُونَ مَا يُؤْمَرُونَ. They don't disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They do as they're instructed. They never commit any sin. These pure beings, these pure creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they love and respect the student of knowledge so much that they lay down their wings for this person to tread on. So a student of knowledge is actually walking on the wings of angels. Can you imagine that? Better than any red carpet treatment than anybody could imagine. So these are the hadith which talk about the respect that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives to a student of knowledge. And you've probably heard this hadith many times before. مَنْ سَلَكَ طَرِيقًا يَلْتَمِسُ فِيهِ عِلْمًا سَهَلَ اللَّهُ لَهُ بِهِ طَرِيقًا إِلَى الْجَنَّةِ. Whoever treads the path of knowledge, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes the way of Jannah easy for him. Okay, so a person, when he is seeking knowledge, then he knows what is right from wrong, what needs to be given priority at a certain time. But when a person is deprived of knowledge, he doesn't have the correct knowledge, he will do things which he thinks are good to do, and he is actually engaging in bid'ah. He will be doing something which he thinks is good to do, but he may be engaging in haram. For example, if a person doesn't have the correct knowledge, and he says, the day of Eid, it's a very wonderful day, it's a holy day, I think what I'll do, I'll fast on this day. So what's he doing? He thinks that he's doing something good, but he's in fact disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He is disobeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala by fasting on the day of Eid. Similarly, a person says, I think 2 rak'ah fajr is too short. I feel like praying 4 rakat of fajr. I think that would be better, and because I'm making the salat lengthier, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will appreciate it much more. Is he doing something good? No. Because of his jahal, because of his ignorant thinking, he thinks he's doing something right, but in fact, he's doing something completely wrong, and his salat is not going to be accepted. A person, he goes on a journey, he's traveling, he knows about the issue of shortening the prayer. And he knows it's sunnah to shorten the prayer, but he says to himself, I just don't feel comfortable shortening the prayer. I think I should lengthen the prayer instead of shortening it, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will like it much more. Again, ignorance leading him to do something which is incorrect. So when a person has true knowledge, he is actually doing things right. He's doing things correctly. He is differentiating between halal and haram, between right and wrong, between sunnah and bid'ah, and that person is practicing Islam as it should be practiced. He is then making the way of Jannah easy for himself. You've probably heard this hadith of the person who killed 99 men, right? And then he went to a monk and he asked him the fatwa. He asked the fatwa, and this monk said, no. He asked him, is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ever going to forgive me? So that person said, no. You killed 99 people, how do you expect to be forgiven? So then he killed this person too. Made it 100 century, okay? We call it century in cricket, right? So he made 100 century, he killed 100 people. So then, after that, he went to an alim. And then he asked him the same question. So the alim told him, go to such and such a place where there are such and such people who are pious, stay in their company, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will give you the tawfiq to make a sincere tawbah, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will forgive you. So he sets out on his journey. And during this journey, his time comes. His time of death comes. When his time of death comes, both of the angels, group of angels, are disputing and arguing with each other. They're fighting with each other that who should take his ruh? Who should take the soul of this person? Should it be the angels of maghfirah or the angels of punishment? So then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends another angel to solve this dispute. And this angel basically tells them, measure the land. If the distance to where he's going is shorter, meaning he's come a longer way and he's closer to the place where he's going to go, then you have to forgive him, and the angels of Rahmah and Maghfirah have to take him. And if his distance to his place, his home, is closer, then the angels of Adhab and punishment have to take him. So the distance was measured, and he was indeed closer to the place that he was about to go to, and his sin of killing 100 people was forgiven. And there are also some riwayat that suggest that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually made the distance shrink between where he was and where he was about to go, so that he could be forgiven. Now this hadith, you've probably heard it before, but Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he brings this hadith under the title Fadlul Alimi ala al-Abid. Fadlul Alimi ala al-Abid, which means the status of an alim over an abid. The status of an alim and over an abid. And people who've actually studied Bukhari, they will know that Imam Bukhari, he actually brings the title of a subheading basically of the hadith that he's about to bring. And the point that he's trying to put across in that hadith, he puts in the title. Okay? Literally speaking, if you look at the wording of the hadith, there is no actual wording that says that the status of an alim is greater than the status of an abid. In the hadith, there's no wording like that. But the story is that first he goes to an abid, he goes to a monk, right? He goes to a monk who's just worshipping, he's a hermit, he's dedicated his life just to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But he doesn't have the true knowledge. So he gives the wrong answer and he basically suffers because of that. He gets killed also. And an alim, a knowledgeable person, he gives the correct answer. So Imam Bukhari rahimahullah, he brings the title, he brings this hadith under the title, Fadlul Alimi al Abid, to show the difference in the alim, the response of an alim, and the response of a person who is just a lay person, who is just worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That person, an alim, can guide a person correctly, and he can, he can give the person the correct advice, as opposed to going to X, Y, and Z, who can give you 100 different answers, and not all of them are going to be correct. So this is what Imam Bukhari does, and for future this is good. I'd like to just read the statement of Qadi Iyad rahimahullah about the person who is seeking knowledge. Qadi Iyad rahimahullah, he says, لا شبهة أن علم العالم يقتضي لطاعته من المنزلة ما لا يحصل للمؤمن أو ما لا يحصل للمؤمن. There is no doubt that the knowledge of an alim dictates, because of his ta'at to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because of his obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it gives him the status that an ordinary mu'min does not attain. وَلِذَلِكَ فَإِنَّهُ يُقْتَدَى بِالْعَالِمِ فِي كُلِّ أَفْعَالِهِ. That's why an alim is followed in all of his af'al, in all of his deeds. وَلَا يُقْتَضَى بِغَيْرِ الْعَالِمِ. And a non-alim is not followed. A non-alim is not obeyed in things of knowledge. لأنه يعلم من كيفية الاحتراز عن الحرام والشبهات ومحاسبة النفس ما لا يعرفه الغير. Because of his knowledge, he recognizes that other people don't recognize what is halal and what is haram, what is doubtful, and the idea of muhasabatun nafs, which is self-evaluation. He, because of his knowledge, he recognizes it that other people do not recognize. وَيَتَحَفَّظُ فِيمَا يَلْزَمُهُ مِنَ الْحُقُوقِ مَا لَا يَتَحَفَّظُ مِنْهُ غَيْرُهُ. And he basically guards the things that he's supposed to guard that other people, non-scholars, do not guard. And then he goes on describing the status and the qualities of an alim. So here we see that the alim, he basically differentiates between halal and haram, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives him a status because of that. Now the next thing that I'd like to talk about, going on, is the concept of adab in knowledge. The older people that are sitting here, back home, there's a phrase used in India and Pakistan. Who can tell me that about adab? I'm sure 100 people are going to tell me. Ba adab? Yeah, there you go. Ba adab, ba nasib, be adab, be nasib. What does that mean? The one who is respectful, he is a fortunate person. And the one who is disrespectful, he is a misfortunate person. And this stretches across the respect to parents, respect to your peers, and respect to scholars, and respect to knowledge. And unfortunately what has happened is that because of the fact that knowledge is so easily attained nowadays by just a few clicks of the mouse, that respect for knowledge is non-existent, or it's not as much as it should be. Okay? What happens is when you strive for something and you basically push yourself for something, then what happens is that you are actually have respect for it and you value it. But because it's so easy to attain that knowledge nowadays, people basically don't have the respect for knowledge anymore. There's a famous story related about Imam Malik rahimahullah in a book which is called Al-Madkhal ila Sunan al-Kubra lil Bayhaqi. In this, it is mentioned that Imam Malik rahimahullah, he's giving a hadith lecture. He's giving a lecture on hadith. And the students are looking at him, and he's kind of shifting about in his seat, uncomfortably, right? You can tell that there's something wrong, okay? And sometimes his face is going red, sometimes it's going pale, and sometimes it's going blue, and he's basically shifting about in his seat. So when the lesson finishes, he instructs his students, just lift my shirt up from the back, please. So they lift his shirt up, and there's a scorpion over there. And that scorpion has stung him in 16 places. It has stung him in 16 places, but he continued the lecture of the hadith. And the people were astonished. The students were completely astonished that how can a person be stung by a scorpion 16 times and just sit in his place? What was his response? He said, "Na'am, أنا صبرت إجلالا لحديث رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم." I practice sabr and patience because of the reverence that I had for the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ. If you can imagine nowadays what we do, we're on our iPads, lying on our beds, reading the hadith, and when we're in any lecture, we are just stretching out, sometimes checking our text messages, updating our Facebook status, whatever it is, But that respect for knowledge is just non-existent. That's something that we really are lacking in today's society, especially amongst the youth. I'd like to relate a story about myself, what happened. And again, this concept of tarbiyah and teaching of adab is also non-existent nowadays. As I was saying, during the course of my studies, I must have been around 12 or 13, when I was sitting in a class, and where we studied, we actually sat on the floor and carpeted, but the benches were on the floor, and that's how we used to sit. So one of my classmates from across the room, he asked me to borrow a pencil. So I threw it across the room, and he basically caught it, started using it. My teacher, who was sitting in his place, he called me, and he asked me, "Why did you throw the pencil?" So I was like any 12, 13-year-old. He asked me for it, so I threw it to him. Hello, okay, kind of thing. Hello is a 90s thing, I think. But so that's what I said. So my teacher said, that's kind of stuck with me throughout my life. He said, the pencil that you threw across the room, that's a tool of knowledge. It's a tool of knowledge, and the tool of knowledge, it should be respected. That was inappropriate for you to throw it across the room. Next time, if somebody asks you for a pen or a pencil, go and hand it to him. This is the respect that our teachers taught us, which unfortunately is very lacking nowadays. Anybody that does karate around here? Who does karate? Who's ever done karate? Okay. What do you do when you go into your dojo? Before you go into your dojo, what do? You bow, right? Okay, why do you bow? Respect of what? Respect for the dojo, right? So when you're doing karate, what do? When you go to the dojo basically is the learning place for karate. Before you go into the dojo, the students are expected to go and just bow to the dojo, out of respect for the dojo. And this is for a worldly art, okay? A worldly art of basically fighting and self-defense. How much respect do you think we should have for our places of knowledge upon which our success of this life and the hereafter are dependent? Okay? The respect to the classroom, respect to the masjid, respect to the place where we sit and learn knowledge, that respect is lacking. Okay? So we need to understand this concept of adab and instill it into our lives. I needed to talk about a lot of things, but Brother Larry just keeps on handing me notes. So I'm going to break with this, inshallah. I pray that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us the true knowledge and gives us tawfiq to strive for true knowledge, May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us the respect for the knowledge and give us the respect for the bearers of knowledge, the scholars who teach us knowledge, and our Imams. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq to practice everything that has been said and heard today. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.